Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Warriors Season 1, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we have Assam finding out about Bolo being sent on a one-man mission of killing Long Z, but he's not going to stop there. He's going to kill Mai Ling as well. Makes sense. Just to set a point of killing the top leadership, because it's like, right, not only am I killing your leader, but I'm also killing his wife because she's just as responsible. All decisions, it's just like, right, you don't just go for the king, you also go for the queen, essentially. And obviously, Assam is desperate to get there ahead of time. Bolo's already sliced his way through some people, and luckily, Assam got there in time to stop Bolo. I was wondering if he was going to try and explain things to Bolo, but it's also like, right, because I think Assam didn't really know how that was going to end. Because even throughout their fight, Assam broke his arm, but at no point is Assam, at the beginning when he had a hatchet in his hand, at multiple times I feel like he could have just straight up killed Bolo, but he didn't want to, because it's like a thing of, regardless of us having our beef, we have fought together, we've bled together, you are a brother, I know about your circumstances now, the yellow demon and everything, I know who you were and what you've been through, so it is a thing of, I don't know if Assam would have killed him given the opportunity. I think he would have, because it's like, well, he doesn't know. I don't think Assam really thought that far ahead. He probably thought somewhere in the back of his mind it's going to have to end like this. So he was caught off guard when Mai Ling ended up killing Bolo. But it's like, yeah, that's the only way it could end, because last thing you need is him going back to the Hopway and Father June and even Young June and telling them that you're a traitor. He never gave them information, because he never gave Bolo the explanation of like, right, this is my sister. Would it have changed anything? No. It probably would have made him be like, oh, you're doubly a traitor. Your sister's here. Like, it's probably like, right, you got connected with the Hopway just so that you could like spy on us for your sister. I'm sure Bolo would have thought like that. But it's regardless of what would have been, it's all a moot point now because Bolo's dead. And so is Long Z, because it turns out that Mai Ling kills him. I was just waiting for it the moment she had the sword. When she put it down, I'm like, oh, is she not going to kill him? Is she going to use her own blade or something? But it's like, no, the moment she picked the sword back up, Long Z was like, oh, okay, I see how it is. So that's what this is going to. So, it's like, right, they did end up killing me. Now, I don't know how to fully interpret that. Either he's looking at it like, hey, you're actually a plant by the Hopway, or two, it's like, right, I actually know who you really work for with Buckley and everything. Or once again, how much it seems like a lot of that he's unaware of, but like him saying like, oh, they do get to kill me. I mean, the Hopway were aiming to kill you, so I guess he interpreted it as like, well, in a way, it's probably more so he read the situation for what it is. He's like, you're gonna kill me, you're gonna take over the Long Z, but everyone's gonna think that it was a Hopway that killed me. So in a sense, they still managed to kill me in the end, even though you killed Bolo. But he's like, right, they have no idea who they're up against, do they? And she's like, they will. Now, that could be interpreted in multiple ways of like, right, the Hopway just treat you as like, right, you're Long Z's woman. And the same thing for people in the Long Z, they look at you as just Long Z's wife, not recognizing you for who you are, what you've done to get to where you are, that you're not afraid to shed some blood, that you're willing to do whatever it takes as a leader. And even later on, I thought was interesting when she ended up telling Lee Yong the truth, where it's like, oh, they killed Long Z. She's like, no, they didn't. I did, because his time was already his time. It was already our time. So the point was to always take over the organization, because it does seem like Long Z knows about her and Lee Young, but he never really pushed too much on it. I get it. He's younger and everything, but I think at least the way they had a conversation before where he was like, oh, did you talk to Lee Young about it? She's like, yes. And he agrees with me. Like, I don't know if he did know or whether he had his suspicions, but it seemed like that conversation might have implied, or at the very least he knows it's like, right, he's your trusted confidant. Whether it goes beyond just confidant, who knows. But Leon wasn't too, like, you could tell he was legitimately shocked by the information, because it's like, right, you killed him, but it is, right, this was always going to be ours to inherit. We couldn't wait around for him to live out and die. It's like, we had to take the reins ourselves. Well, she's working with Buckley, so I guess Buckley's promising her, like, hey, you do all this stuff for us, I can make sure that the Hopway gets wiped out, and the Long Z gets to conquer while I get to, invoke my own ambitions. Now, I'm sure Buckley's playing a lot of his cards close to the vest, so Mai Ling probably doesn't see the greater danger it is of who Buckley is. She sees herself as, I think it's just like, you see him as like some rich and powerful duck, but it does seem like she has some, not necessarily fear, but it does seem like she is cautious around him. Like, I think she does recognize how dangerous he is, and so she does seem cautious when operating with him, but I don't know if she recognizes the true danger that he is, or maybe he's someone that overestimates himself. Because I love that story she told about, like, you know, it's like, right, the fox and the tiger, and it's like the fox is like, okay, you can eat me because people fear you, but they also fear me. That's why like, I'm not afraid of you. And it's like, oh, okay, you prove to me that people are afraid of you, I won't eat you. But if people are not afraid of you, I'm going to eat you. And the tiger was following along. The moment they said that, I was like, right, all the fox has to do, because that's what foxes are. Like, in mythologies, foxes are tricksters. They're always represented as tricksters, especially in Japanese mythology. So I figured it's like, yeah, that's a sly thing a fox would do. I mean, I don't even think maybe it stems from Japanese mythology, or maybe it just stems, because I feel like, because that's a colloquialism of like, oh, being sly like a fox. So it's like they're always known to be like shady and like storytelling and stuff. But that might not originate in Japan. But Japan really leans into the whole trickster angle of them. So I don't know if it does originate in Japan, or whether just Japan adopted it in its mythology in that regard. And so it has other places. Because it's always interesting knowing what something started somewhere, and how different parts of the world might kind of incorporate that in some shape or form. It's interesting. So I don't know if it started in Japan. I mean, for all I know, it might have even started in China. Like, I associate it with a Japanese name, but I think that's also because like the anime weeb in me, just because of like Naruto and stuff with Kurama and everything. But tangents and all that aside, but yeah, her saying like, right, so many people stuck by Longzi because he was so many foxes were able to kind of run about because they had Longzi, the tiger, and he kept so much in check. He radiated fear. I mean, that was also his biggest concern, because it's like, right, I used to be able to walk these streets, never having to worry about a hatchet in my back, but I'm older now, and that fear that people once had for me has dissipated. And now I love that line from her being like, some people walk around thinking they're the tigers now. I think it's time we remind them who the real tigers are. So kind of referencing the Hopway, but I think that could also be applied to some of the Longzi as well, where it's like, some of you think you're tigers, no, you're foxes, trying to just feed off the energy of what is a tiger. But I think she was more so referring to the Hopway, but I think it could be applicable to some of the Longzi as well. So she's getting exactly what she wants, but obviously getting what you want doesn't ever, like, there's always going to be a price to pay, and the question in the end of the day is, for her machination, for all her plans, if it all goes well, then maybe it'll be worth it, but will it all go well? Will her plans come falling apart? Will they go exactly the way she wants them to? We'll have to wait and see. But let's tie this whole circumstance into everything with Penelope this episode. She was supposed to meet up with Asam, but because of the whole situation with rescuing his sister, he didn't show up. Because she learned from her dad that the deal he made with the mayor is not going through. But it turns out, like, she can't talk to the mayor. The mayor's holding out on, like, really keeping up his end of the deal because, yeah, him and Penelope are married, but she's not putting out. And it's like, oh, and he's kind of holding that against Mr. Blake. And she's like, oh. Like, he's like, right, but you haven't, and she's like, you're really asking me to do that? She's like, but he's kind of trying to justify, but like, bro, he's your husband, so it's almost like your wifely duties. And she's like, what, you want me to whore myself out to him? It's like, yes, I might be his wife, but I am your daughter, and you're asking me to put myself in that position. And like, because she constantly drugs him, or like knocks him out just so they don't have to sue, because she doesn't want to be touched by him. I mean, she's only in this marriage in the first place because of you, and now you're trying to put even more weight. Like, he knows who Penelope is. So either it is a thing of he legitimately didn't want to talk about it. If he didn't, he wouldn't have pressed the issue so much. He wouldn't have eventually been like caved in. If he really wanted to protect Penelope's feelings and make her not feel guilty, the point was to make her feel guilty, to make her decide to put out so that Blake could, because it's like, right, I'll lose the house if we go at this state, your mother's house, trying to like make her feel bad about, like, right, if you don't do this, we could end up losing everything. That's the reason why she did this in the first place, and you're still making her go more and more. Like, it wasn't already bad enough. And he's trying to say like, oh, do you know how much this makes me feel as your father? Is like, shut up. shut your goddamn mouth, because all for you, it's all about perspective of like, oh, like how humiliating it is of me as a father having to ask my daughter to do that. There's that. But two, it's like, you're not the one that has to sleep with the dude. You're not the one that has to like get fucked. She is, you know? And it's not because she wants to. It is rape. It's, you know, because she doesn't want it. She has to just accept, like, you sold her in a sense, you know? And I think being with Assam was going to be like, she might not have fully decided by then, but it's not until she went back home that she probably was like, all right, well, back to the mayor's place with her and the mayor's place. That's probably when she decided. But like, I don't know if like she probably was hoping to talk it out with Assam and figure out what she was going to do, because it wasn't clear. Or maybe it was a thing of she always knew what she was going to do, but she wanted that, hey, I wanted to have like one more like lovemaking session. I want there to be like lovemaking. I want there to be a connection. I want to be with someone I legitimately want to like have sex with and be with, versus someone my skin crawls. I literally cringe at their touch, you know? So she didn't like drug or knock him out. She did it to herself because she was hoping to probably like, right, just numb herself and just pass out and let him do whatever defile her in whatever way he wants. So, and that's what she does. Obviously she puts it on like, hey, I'm the one, and just, you know, kind of getting him hot and ready. And then, you know, so Assam is going to be none the wiser about that. So that's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. I don't think she's going to be upset with him missing their last meeting, but she's probably not going to be this. That's probably like the first time it's happened at all between her and her husband, because she's probably avoided it like the plague. Because we don't know how long they've been married, I don't think. So it could be a thing of she's been holding out this entire time, and now it's just like, right, it finally happened. So hopefully for her father's sake, it was worth it, you know, so. And that's just going to add more of it, because at least her and her father had a decent enough relationship post them, her and Namir getting married. But this is just kind of like, yeah, that's always going to be a stain on their relationship. And he's always going to know what he asked of his daughter, what he put her in position to do. And that guilt's going to be there, rightfully so. And she's probably going to always harbor something in her heart towards you, like some form of resentment, justifiable resentment on her part. But we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. And then finally, we had the other situation with Atoy in this episode. I said finally, there's still another story beat I have to get to. I forgot about. But let's shift over to the Atoy of it all. She ends up picking. We meet the guy. What's his name? Like Zahn or something. He's the guy that she gets her ladies from. And there's one particular girl she took an interest in. And it turns out like she's from a very specific place in China. So it's like, I'm wondering if that's the place Atoy is from. Because we don't know enough about Atoy, but maybe when she looks at this girl, she sees herself. Because this girl is a virgin, so she's highly, you know, sought after because of that. It's like, right, sick bastards want to be the one to pay extra to be the one to take her virginity type of thing, so. But we don't really, but it does seem like Atoy has taken an interest in her wholeheartedly. And I'm curious, she was in the room when Assam and her were talking about the whole, like, finding the house that Longzi and Mai Ling were at. I'm like, I wish you weren't having that conversation in front of her. She's not very talkative right now, but that could be a story beat that could come up later on that reveals, hey, Assam was there. Like, no one is the wiser. The only person that knows is Atoy. So, and the woman they went to who used to be part of the Longzi, who now works for Atoy. And it's like, well, what's that? That's not the same. I completely forgot to talk about it. What was that, like episode 2, I want to say? Maybe episode 2 or 3? There was the beautiful girl that, I wasn't paying attention. I don't know if that was the same girl or not. I didn't even think about it, because like, one of the girl who sold, Assam out about like, hey, someone's asking about Mai Ling. Well, Zhao Jing, but obviously Mai Ling. But, so she's the one that was like, right, don't worry, you're going to still be beautiful afterwards. I would assume that had to be the same girl. I wasn't paying as much of attention as I should have, because she was going to like scar up her face, but she's like, oh, you're still going to be beautiful when it's all said and done. So I wasn't paying that much attention, especially when she made a point to like make her lift her face up. I should have. It didn't even click in my head until just now, but I'm assuming, and I could be wrong. I would assume that's the same girl. It's been a couple days, so I don't remember if it's the same girl. Like I said, it's like a one scene that I also, like I said, in that particular review, I completely forgot to talk about it, but it would make sense. She already had, that girl in particular already had Long Z connection, so it also would make sense that she'd be the one that Atoy went to, but she probably won't talk out of fear of Atoy. Like, you know, she stakes her territory and stakes her place pretty well to not be crossed or fucked with. So, but Zahn made the problem of like, yeah, he was trying to upsell the girl's virginity to some guy, and the moment Atoy found about it, stabbed his hand into the wall. When she pulled the knife out, she made sure to cut off one of his fingers in the process. So that's going to complicate her business relationship going forward. But I guess it's like, right, maybe if he causes any problems, maybe she'll kill him and find someone else to fill that void. Because I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to make money in that capacity. So she could probably find anyone to kind of fit that, or maybe she just goes to someone else entirely for her girls going forward. We'll see. I'm sure that's going to come back to bite her, especially the guy that is a pretty powerful dude. What was it? The guy was saying, he was saying like, this guy's someone who's like, the bricks he makes or whatever is basically used in every single building in the city. So he is pretty well connected. And Atoy left him with a scar being like, yeah, explain this to your wife. So, but I'm sure Atoy is going to treat this new girl like, you know, try to make her kind of like her protege of like, right, I want to make you kind of like me. I'm gonna make you stronger, and that shyness and that weakness, like, people are going to try and take advantage of you, are going to take you, and it's just like, I'm going to be the one that ends up helping you blossom into who you can be, just like she was. Like, maybe she had an Atoy of her own that ended up helping her become who she became, the madam and everything that she has become. Once again, we don't know much about her past, so we don't know how she got to where she is. If she had to work her way up, especially when she told Assam that line of, no one can buy me, and now this girl is in that same regard of like, yeah, she's under my protection, no one buys her. Atoy doesn't need anyone's protection, she protects herself. So I'm wondering, was she someone like all these other girls where she was kind of being sold at one point in time, but now she's in a powerful enough position where it's like, no one fucks with me, I have the power, and no one gets to dictate what I do, and also I am here to look after my girls, because this is going to happen one way or another, but I'm going to make sure that they are able to find a way to live, and I'm also going to post my flag in this enterprise. So we'll kind of deep dive into that potentially more going forward. But the other storyline is we finally learn about Lee's circumstances, what it is he's running from in Georgia. And it should have made sense considering it's in the South, but we'll get to that in a second. But it turns out Lee killed 2 people and he's wanted for murder. Turns out he's not even actually a cop, so it's like, I mean, I guess it's like applying to be an officer is not like you had to probably take any special tests at this time and frame. You probably just had to sign up or whatever. It's like, I wonder what the police process is like back then in the 1800s. Like, what was that in compared to now, where you have to take all these tests and pass all these things? Obviously, like, the scrutiny to become a cop was not that much if he's able to be like, hey, to be fair, once again, he went around literally on the other side of the country, so probably like checking his background probably wasn't the easiest, but I mean, he was also very upfront about where he was. He's like, yeah, he could have lied, but he's like, no, I'm from Savannah, Georgia, and yada, yada, yada. So it's like, he never hid from where he was, just the circumstances of what led him to be where he is now. So it turns out a bounty hunter, because Lee actually saw him last episode, but like the moment Lee caught a look at him, he had disappeared. I don't, like, he said he had been following Lee's trail. I don't know, my thought was, and this is what I said, the moment that picture of them was taken, yes, Lee's in the background, but his head and face is exposed enough you can still see him at the department picture they took, like, what, episode 5, I think? It's enough of his face exposed, I'm like, yeah, whatever he's running from, we'll find him, and it did, but I don't know if that's the direct correlation. It's just, after that photo's taken, now this person suddenly shows up. It feels like there's a connection in that regard. And obviously Bill got a lot of stuff he's dealing with. One, he still owes the fungi. So once again, they don't have their white guy to send into town for people who aren't in Chinatown. He is also one who still has to patrol around Chinatown, so they still could come after him. So he does still need the money, but he's also being haunted by killing Damon last episode. Once again, he's probably killed people for it. Maybe not, but at the bare minimum, like, he's never killed someone in cold blood in this capacity. And it is a thing of, I'm doing it to save my family, but it is, it's still the selfish act of and the reason why my family's in danger in the first place. So it's a bit of a catch-22, because once again, the only way you be protecting your family is by protecting them from yourself. So, but anyway, we learned the truth about Lee's circumstances. It turns out that the person he was with was a woman named Nora, who's black. Like I said, I could tell she had a darker complexion. I was thinking maybe she was Chinese just because of everything. But then it's like, in retrospect, it's like, I do feel stupid because I'm like, well, it makes sense why she'd be black, considering, like, once again, Georgia's in the South, specifically the South in the East. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you never actually refer to the South. Like, when you say the South, everyone just assumes you're talking about the East Coast. No one ever thinks you're talking about the West Coast. Because it's like, it's not the same thing when you think about, like, there's certain parts of California that are the South of the U.S., but it's still like, it's not the same. I mean, I guess because of the the connotation that's always been associated with the South of, when it came to this country's early days, that it makes sense why that would just be like, especially considering, like, right, the first 13 colonies that were founded, like, when the country was discovered. I'm obviously, this is audio, you can't tell it, but I put quotes around, the whole discover thing. So, either way, but it makes sense why it'd be like someone that was a former slave, and her family, like, moved in, and it's like, right, she grew up like a sibling to him until it developed into something more, and they kept it a secret. But he had two cousins who were already racist pieces of shit, and they were drunk, and they ended up attacking and killing her. And Lee shot one and, like, sliced up the other one with a sickle as just kind of retribution for what they did. And he buried Nora and he left. For him, he's like, yeah, my family was already going through enough. They weren't siblings, they were cousins, and we don't know, like, how far off the family branch they were, like, whether they were, like, distant cousins or close cousins. So I think that makes a difference. But yeah, I wonder how his family feels about all of this, because obviously for Lee, it's like, I can never go home. But I'm so curious to see what he's going to do now, because it's like, okay, Bill sold you out, but it's like, nah, Bill actually had your back. Well, not really. Bill admitted, hey, it was a 50-50 on which way this was going to go. I wanted to hear your side of things. If I liked it, well, we got the circumstances we're in right now. But if I didn't like it, hey, I would have handed you over because I could use the money. But for Bill, it's like, right, because he's like, oh, you became a cop for penance. And Lee's like, penance? Why would I need penance for something that I don't regret about doing? It's like, no. They murdered the woman I love. Those pieces of shit deserved what they got. I don't regret that, So I think that is, so I think he became a cop because he wants to put justice in the world, because, like, an injustice like that would have just slipped under the radar. Like, they would have been able to get away with what they've done. So, and that perspective and that circumstances is why Lee has the perspective he does on the Chinese, like, situation here in San Francisco. That's also something I wanted to bring up, because, like, I don't know, especially at this time frame, I'd assume, like, all of the Asian population is in, like, California at this point in time. I don't know if they've scattered around, like, the U.S. Like, like, obviously there are going to be black folk all over the place. Scattered around because, so many people are sold in different places, and obviously now being free. But I don't even know if there is at this time frame, was there even any Asian people living in Georgia at that time? That's what I wasn't aware of, because I assume, like, everyone's in California just because of where all Asian people are kind of being allocated there because of the railroad system and stuff like that, specifically because that's what Asian people were being, used as indentured labor in that capacity. So either way, Bill now knows Lee's secret and understands, like, right, you're doing what you had to protect, because of what happened to someone you love, which he's not also going to judge you because it's like, yo, he's like, I figured you weren't a cold-blooded murderer, which obviously kind of probably weighs a little heavy on his own tongue, because I'm sure he's trying to justify it in some regards, but also beating himself up about the guilt over what he did. So But eventually, other people will come for Lee, and it's like, what is he going to do about that? You know, it's like, right, he's got Bill's help in this regard, but it's like, yeah, Bill's like, I owe you. You didn't ask too many questions. You stuck around and protected my family like I asked you to, so I kind of owed you a favor in this regard. So, like I said, we'll have to wait and see where things kind of go on that front, where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode, because our episode ends with the clashing of the Hopway and the Long Z. Of course, like when they were setting up, you're like, oh, there's only like a few minutes left in this episode. Yeah, they're just going to set it up and cut it to black with them. So the moment we pick up next episode, there's going to be a lot of blood and death. So how that all plays out, especially where Osama is going to play and like what is he ultimately going to do with his allegiances to the Hopway and Young Jun. It's interesting because like I feel like all the stuff I kind of thought about my Ling taking over, I thought about Young Jun, but he never really seemed like he was gung-ho for that, but now it seems like he is. Of like, yeah, his dad's getting older and stuff, so he does seem like he is ready to take over, but he isn't going to go gunning for the throne like My Ling did, but maybe certain circumstances will put him in a position where he feels the need to, so... Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where Asam's loyalties, how they are divided where they are now. Now, fighting Long Z like this is no problem, but when it comes to his sister directly, that's a whole other problem. So, like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episode takes us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and good